love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
What's up, guys? Leighton here for UFC Gambling Addicts, back again with another UFC breakdown. This time it's going to be UFC 244, Masvidal versus Diaz, the BMF title. And this pay-per-view card, literally from the bottom to the very top, is just a great card. There are so many good fights on this card. And it's going to be a tough one to predict because literally from the very bottom to the top, anyone can win these fights. It's an amazing pay-per-view card. Probably one of the best pay-per-view cards I've seen on paper. So as a fan, I cannot wait for Saturday night to just sit back and watch this card. Before we get into breaking down this card, as always, I'm going to spend 5 to 10 minutes just speaking about the Singapore card and a few things we need to take a look at with that card. So if you don't want to listen to all of that, you can skip ahead to the breakdown of this card. But if you're someone who does listen to the whole show, I'm just going to spend 5 minutes. So if you take a look at this picture, I've basically put quite a few bets or kind of the story of my game plan in one picture here. If you take a look at the top right, that's a parlay that came through. And then if you take a look at the 4 other parlays, they're all ending in Ben Askren. Now, I try to teach this as much as I can. Like, you can completely be wrong and win money. And this is how you do it. So I have 4 parlays here ending in Ben Askren. And I know there's someone looking at this picture right now going, if you ended all those parlays in Damian Maia and added a 0 onto all of those bets, you would have had a very good time. That's completely true. I'm sure if we could all see the future, that's what we'd do. However, I can't read the future. I make my pick and I try my very hardest to still profit, and even if I'm wrong, I can still profit. So that's basically what I did here. All of these parlays are ending in Ben Askren, and roughly off the top of my head, this has got to be over £300, roughly 330, 340. I'm sure someone could add it up, but there's a lot of money, is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of money coming in here on Ben Askren. So what if I'm wrong? Well, William Hill was offering 4-1 anytime sub for Damian Maia, which is plus 400. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the amount of money coming in on Ben Askren. It's okay to be wrong and still win. If Ben Askren wins, it's like £180 profit. If Damian Maia wins, it's £80 profit, which isn't the best, but it's profit. Profit is profit, and that's what I want to do every single week. If I'm wrong, I want to still be right. If I'm right, I want to be right. It's a weird way to bet, but my number one thing in betting is, even if I'm wrong, I want to have a plan B that backs me up and takes care of me being wrong. And that's what I've done here. So as much as you can hedge, if you ever can hedge, if you're in a strong position to hedge, do it. But, you know, I should maybe make a video, like just a 30-minute video, just on hedging and discussing the risks, when you can, when you shouldn't, when you should. But yeah, let's move on into the poll for the last card. We had over 300 votes. I asked for over 300 votes. We got over 300. So yeah, love that, boys. Love that. Over 300 votes. 54% on Ben Askren, 46% on Damian Maia, and that is completely fair. I'm completely happy with that. Obviously, our community was very split on the main event, but rightly so. Rightly so. We have a very good wrestler against a very, very good jiu-jitsu player. And how do you separate that? How do you make a pick? Let's move on to a few comments, because that answers my question. Obviously, every week, someone in the comments nails it, and this is a long comment, but I've picked it out because he basically nailed it. Daniel Marabian. I'm gonna call you Daniel. I've got Maia because he's the better striker of the two, and on the ground I believe he poses serious problems for Askren. Askren is the favourite in this fight due to Askren having a great MMA record and the fact that Maia doesn't have a great track record against wrestlers. Woodley, Covington and Usman all wanted to keep the fight vertical where they would have the advantage, whereas Askren is more than willing to engage Maia on the ground where Maia is at his best, because Askren acknowledges that his own striking is basically non-existent. Nailed it. Nailed it. However, I'm sure a few of us can acknowledge that uppercut from Ben Askren had definitely been worked on. Now, was it a killer uppercut? No. Was we a little bit surprised when it was landing? And Damian Maia kind of looked like he was wearing it after 10 minutes, you know? So, at the same time, when you nailed that, you really nailed that, Daniel. But at the same time, Ben Askren, he kind of impressed me on the feet a little bit for his standard. You know, I don't want to say his striking was impressive, because it wasn't. But for Ben Askren, I would say it was impressive. Chris, what happens when a grappler faces a wrestler? We usually end up with a fight standing, which you have to favour Maia. Maia's striking actually didn't look too bad in the Covington fight. I see value on Maia at plus 160, and I may be betting him in this spot. Nailed it. And just to reply to you with your opinion with the Covington Maia fight, I completely agree with you. I mean, if I can remember rightly, and I believe I spoke about it on the last breakdown, or may not have, Maia, that was a popping jab. Like, Colby had a bloody face. So, yeah, really, really strong, beautiful opinion there. I agree with it. And you, Chris, you've nailed that comment as well, mate. SS in, laugh my ass off. You said you guys are probably smoking a bowl right now, and just as I was packing a bowl. Well, for my stoners, I'm sure you're all smoking. This is a beautiful, beautiful card, the BMF card. Oh man, and it's a beautiful card from the very bottom to the top, man. This is such a great card. Mr. Brozilla, cannot wait to see some Loma boom boom in this fight. Tiger uppercut. Mate, what about those tiger knees? Wow. Nasty, nasty knees from Loma, man. That girl she impressed me. Brian Ortega. Yo sleeping on Maia. My girlfriend says that yo a lot. She's from like North Carolina, and she says y'all sleeping on Maia, dude. Richard M. I don't see how Ben wins. Kamara, Colby, and Tyron were all wrestlers that had decent striking. Ben has no striking, and his ground and pound is horrible. Each one of the wrestlers that he's has beaten Damian did so by boxing him and preventing the takedown. Ben can't box and is not going to take down Damian. So how does Ben win? My money is on Damian. Well, I love how confident you were, because, you know, you're saying Ben can't go to the ground and he can't box. So Ben's basically not in the octagon at this point in your imagination. But that doesn't matter, because with that confidence that Ben's just not there, I'm assuming you won very good money. So credit to you, Richard. Obviously, he had to do one of the two, but he done both. He looked for his uppercut. Takedowns, you know, he went for the takedowns too. But ultimately, you know, you nailed it too. So went to the mat, gave up the back, ended up choked. That's how it goes. What we got now? We got social media. If you want to follow me on social media, here is my stuff. Anyone who messages me, I will always reply on Twitter or on YouTube too. If you leave a comment, I will always reply to you. Okay, just before we get into this breakdown, I'm going to do a very quick 5-minute recap of the Singapore card for anyone that wants to hear my opinion on all of those fights. Real quick opinion though. Pessoa, Jeff Hughes. Credit to Pessoa. Really imposed his size in the octagon with Jeff Hughes. And it's not often someone can make Jeff Hughes look like the guy who isn't the aggressor in the octagon. So credit to Pessoa in that one. Loma, Lookboon, me and Albu. Albu, she tried to impose her dominance in that fight, but every time it ended up in that clinch, man, just Albu was so confused, man. She was grabbing a hold of Loma's top, and then even after being warned, she was still grabbing a hold of the top, like she had no clue how to stop the knees or get the fight to the mat. It was only in the third round she was able to get the fight to the mat. Massive credit to Loma. She looked very good. Pavlovich and Green. Pavlovich, man, that guy, he has some heavy hands and they're very, very quick. I'm now 4 for 4 out of Maurice Green's UFC fight, so I feel like I'm getting a nice little rhythm with Maurice Green. Hopefully he can get a nice matchup in his next one. I can get back to taking him. Credit to Pavlovich, he looked very good. Evloev and Barzola, this was a very good fight. This was very good. My prediction was Evloev TKO, and that didn't happen. However, very satisfied to see Evloev prove me right with his striking. I hear a few people speak about this guy's striking, and I think he's a good striker, man. I think he's a very good wrestler, and I think he's a very good striker, and I think he's only going to get better too. Barzola is the same, you know, tough as nails, relentless, kept coming forward no matter what. I also like Barzola too, so hopefully he can get back to winning ways in his next fight. Fiziev, Alex White, very nice performance from Fiziev this time. Nothing like his debut. I actually tweeted Alex White after that fight because, man, Heart of a Lion. It reminded me of Jamie Malarkey. So, Dana White, if you're listening, Alex White versus Jamie Malarkey. Lionheart versus Lionheart. Set it up. Marcos and Yoda. Man, I was quite impressed that Yoda was able to just kind of hold down Randa Marcos in that first round and at times in the third round. That was really impressive. I didn't feel like she'd have the strength. I knew she, you know, a jiu-jitsu practitioner, but to see her hold down Marcos in side control, that was kind of impressive. I felt like Yoda would get the better on the feet and Randa would get the better on the mat, but apparently, man, I had that one the other way around. Randa was scoring on the feet and Yoda was only going to score on the mat, so I was confused watching that, man, but I was happy I made the right pick. Salikov and Staropoli. This was a really good fight. Really, really good fight. I predicted Staropoli. You know, I always said the whole time, though, Muslim Salikov, amazing kickboxer, very good credentials there. I wouldn't be surprised. It's just one of those ones, man. I had a little bit of faith in the madman, so I stuck with it. Got rocked really badly in that second round, if I remember rightly, and it's nice to see him survive it too. You know, that's the biggest amount of adversity he's fought against. So, yeah, a learning curve for him and Muslim Salikov, man. That guy, his timing is unbelievable. Cyril Gane and Don'Tale Mayes. I think we learnt a lot about Cyril Gane. I really do. When we see him bouncing on his feet, still light, still throwing high kicks, body kicks, and they're powerful. And he's, like I said, still light on his feet and moving. All of that in the third round. Man, we have to go ahead and say, listen, Cyril Gane has some great conditioning. There's no doubt about it. So for anyone who's going to pick against him for conditioning, that's not up on the table for his next one. You know, this guy is clearly conditioned very well. This guy has very good cardio, powerful for basically the whole of the fight, literally. And man, to see him light, bouncing on his feet like that in the third was amazing. And you can see Don'Tale Mayes, like, it looked like Don'Tale Mayes was inspired by Gane's movement. Like, he tried to keep up with the light movement, you know, and you could really see Mayes was trying to implement the same. You know, if you can bounce like that, I can bounce like that too. But for moments in each round, you saw that fade with Mayes and he become flat-footed, where Gane just, man, real light on his feet for a heavyweight and kept it up too. Darush, Camacho, man, levels. There's just levels, boys. I mean, Camacho could have got it done. He could have found the TKO on the feet, but Darush coming in with a strong game plan, got the choke, and I love the way he punched his head into the choke before he started to squeeze too. That was beautiful. This is the fight I have problem with. Stevie Ray, Michael Johnson. This is the only bit of judging I have a problem with. Maybe I had some trouble with the judging a little bit earlier on the card, but I felt the right decisions were made. The right result was made. But this one, I don't think the right result was made. The first round, I felt, oh man, I see some people saying it was close, the first round. I really didn't. I felt Michael Johnson looked great in that first round. The second round, I would say, was closer. But even then, I felt Michael Johnson. I'm sure at least two of those judges had Michael Johnson for the first and the second, but apparently not. The third round was also looking good for Michael Johnson right up until the point where he fell. And I can't remember if he fell or got taken down, but Stevie Ray ended up on top of him. And one of my questions when I was predicting that fight was, I don't really know what Stevie Ray is best at. I'm gonna go ahead now and say jiu-jitsu, because he sunk that body triangle in against Michael Johnson in that third round and he stayed there. So going forward, I'm gonna remember that. I think the best part of Stevie Ray's game, obviously he's tough and he can kickbox, but I think his jiu-jitsu is probably the best part of his game. But I was really surprised that fight went to Stevie Ray, man. Like, couldn't believe it. Main event. Whew, man, what can I say? Ben Askren, he tried to stand with Demian Maia, having some type of success here and there, but Demian Maia was also landing his own shots. So to say Ben Askren was getting the better of the stand-up, I don't agree with. To say Demian Maia was getting the better, I could kind of see that, but not really at the same time. The fight was won and lost with the grappling, and rightfully so, right? We had a grappling main event on our hands, and we got our answer. Jiu-Jitsu won. It's as simple as that. I'm not sure why Ben Askren decided to give his backup in that third round. If I can remember rightly, Demian Maia used like the heel hook, and which was used as a sweep. Then he ended up on top of Ben in half guard, and I have no clue why Ben gave his backup. Maybe just arrogance, you know. I'm going to give my backup. You can't submit me. I'm a very good wrestler. You won't submit me, Demian Maia. But that is rule number one. That is probably one of the only rules that you should have with Demian Maia. You know, make that your only rule. Do not ever give your back up against Demian Maia. And Ben Askren did, and he found out the tough way. He woke up, and not even to mention, it's a one-arm rear naked choke, which once again proves this man has the squeeze of death. So massive credit to Demian Maia. And yeah, let's get into this UFC 244 breakdown. I've already rambled on for 15-20 minutes. I don't know how long it's been. This is probably going to be a long card breakdown. Okay, starting off with Julio Arce versus Hakeem Mean Dawodu. We'll start with Julio. He comes into this fight 3-1 inside the UFC, training out of Tiger Schulman. He's a second-degree black belt in MMA under Daniel Schumann. Also a Golden Glove boxing champion back in 2011 prior to entering the UFC. Fights very well behind the jab, has a very good jab due to his boxing background. Also, he slips his punches just like a boxer would slip punches. As for grappling, very good grappler. We've seen it a few times in his short UFC career so far. Can definitely hang in the clinch and on the mat. Is even won via submission. So I'm looking at Julio Arce, and in all fairness, this guy is a very well-rounded guy. I like his boxing. I like his grappling. Very well-rounded guy. His opponent, Hakeem Dawodu, comes into this fight also 3-1 inside the UFC. Primarily a Muay Thai kickboxer. Got into Muay Thai at 16 years old. And this guy is very quick. Very, very quick. Very explosive. Really quick calf kicks. Good hooks to the body. Also, he has power up top too, you know, with his punches up top. Both guys, I really like both guys, and it's going to be a tough one to start this card with. Boxing-wise, I think Arce is more technical there. Better fundamentals. Kicking, I think Hakeem is better there. More powerful, quicker with his kicks. Grappling, we'd probably have to say Arce could win there too. Probably edges out the grappling. It's a hard one to imagine, man. I have noticed that Arce really plants his lead leg a lot when he's coming forward. If Hakeem is able to go to his calf, like round one, instantly go to the calf, start working the calf, I think he can compromise Arce's movement, and maybe that way he's able to dictate the fight more. I could be wrong, it's a very tough pick to make, but I'm leaning more towards the Muay Thai, the explosion, the quickness of Hakeem Dawodu. So I'm going to take Hakeem via decision. We take a look at the odds. Very playable line. We have minus 135, minus 140, Hakeem, plus 120, plus 115, plus 110 for Julio Arce. So, man, straight away, boys, that indicates to us we have a lot of money going on the boxer, primarily the boxer, and a lot of money going on the guy who has more of a Muay Thai background. And in all honesty, I don't disagree with anyone betting on Julio. I don't disagree with anyone betting on Hakeem. It's a really tough fight to predict and to imagine, but I am slightly leaning towards the Muay Thai guy. So I'm going to take Hakeem there, and I think minus 140, very playable line, and also Julio with underdog odds, also very playable. Moving on into the next one, we have Lyman Cyborg Good versus Chance Black Eagle Rencounter. And this is to be honest, man, this is another one it's a tough one. We'll start with Lyman. Comes into this fight 2 wins, 2 losses inside UFC. Also training at a Tiger Schulman, and also a 2nd degree black belt in MMA, just like Julio Arce. Lyman was the former 170 champion over at Bellator, if anyone doesn't know. This guy has huge power in his hands. You don't want to get caught with an uppercut, a hook, or an overhand with Lyman Good. If you do, chances are you're gonna be badly hurt. Good calf kicks and uppercuts against Ben Saunders. That's probably, if I remember rightly, his most recent TKO. Lyman had that fight with Damian Maia, which, you know, he just completely froze up. He completely froze up in there. If there's one thing you don't want to do against Damian Maia, that's become a stationary target up against the fence. And that's exactly what Lyman Good did. So maybe not the best fight IQ. But like I said, this guy's basically all power. His opponent, Chance Black Eagle Rencounter, comes into this fight 2 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Training out of Alliance MMA, which is a very decent camp. Check them out if you don't know who they are. And this guy's mainly a wrestler. From what I see, he's mainly a wrestler. Very strong grappler. His top control when he's able to get the takedown, very decent top control. If he's able to take the back, he looks very dominant there too. So yeah, his striking is pretty basic. It's pretty basic, and that's because this guy, he just looks like a pure wrestler. He's looking for a takedown. He's looking to end up on top. He's looking to work towards a submission. or to dominate you on the mat and win like that. So, yeah, in some ways, I kind of see this matchup for Lyman Good just like the Damian Maia fight. So he completely froze up against Damian Maia, right? He was taken down a couple times. Maia ended up on his back, neck cranked him, and that's how he won, right? I feel Chance is a big welterweight, evidently a grappler, like I said. So, yeah, Chance does have a way to win. He does have a strong path. But the only difference is Chance Rencounter isn't a 4th degree black belt. Now, I'm not saying Chance can't submit Lyman Good. I'm just saying, if you're Lyman Good and your last loss was against a 4th degree black belt and now you're fighting against a guy with, grappling credentials but nowhere near 22 years of experience and now looked at in the MMA community as a grappling god. You're not fighting that here. You are fighting a guy who is going to try to take you down, but absolutely no reason to freeze up here. I don't want to see Lyman Good freeze up against the fence. So, once again, boys, I think this is a winnable fight for either guy. I think if Chance is able to get the takedown, I think he does have a chance of finding a submission. If Lyman keeps it on the feet, I think he has a very good chance of TKOing Rencounter. And I guess I'm going with, Lyman Good was submitted by a 4th degree black belt with 20 years plus experience. This time, I'm going to say the guy he's fighting against isn't going to look like Damian Maia. He hasn't got the experience Damian Maia has. And in all honesty, man, this might sound disrespectful to some people. I don't see Rencounter's striking as anything more effective than Damian Maia. And I'm just being completely honest. I think this guy's a pure wrestler. And if he doesn't get the takedown, I think he has a big chance of being hurt by Lyman Good. So I'm going to stick with Lyman Good here. I'm going to take Lyman Good via TKO in round number 1. And we take a look at the line. Lyman Good, minus 120, minus 130. Chance Rencounter, plus 105, plus 110. Man, it reflects a very close fight we have on paper. And in our imaginations, man, it's close. It's very split. A lot of people putting money on Rencounter. A lot of people putting money on Lyman Good. This is a competitive pay-per-view card. I love this. Absolutely love this. Alright, boys. Moving on into the next one. We have Caitlin Chookagian versus Jennifer Maia. Potentially a number 1 contender fight. Caitlin Chookagian comes into this fight 5 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. She's a brown belt under Renzo Gracie. Hasn't got a submission win inside the UFC yet. So because of that, I feel she's maybe a little bit underrated as a grappler. But a brown belt under Renzo Gracie is serious stuff. She's been in karate. She's been in karate since 4 years old. So 26 years or so, she's practiced in karate. She's developed this point fighting karate style, which is a little bit similar to Wonderboy. Fights well behind the jab, mainly keeps her opponents, concerned with the kicks. Really, really tricky girl to fight. Moves very well as well with her style. It all really goes into her game plan, her movement, her stance, her kicks, her jabs. It all plays into one strong game plan, and not many girls have success against it, Caitlin Chookagian, I feel, is an underrated female fighter. Jennifer Maia comes into this fight 2-1 inside the UFC. For anybody that doesn't know, she was a former Invicta 125 champion. She's primarily a boxer, is what I see, primarily a boxer. She has competed in a few Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu tournaments prior to the UFC. But what I've seen inside the UFC from this girl is, her danger is basically her hands. Good boxing. She does use her kicks. She can go low and to the body with her kicks, but, she's not really hurting girls with anything other than her hands. surprisingly, Maia had really good takedown defense against Roxanne Modafferi, and her body lock looked very strong as well. So I think it's fair to say that she has improved since the Alexis Davis fight. I think it's fair to say Maia is the more powerful puncher in this fight, but I don't think she's anywhere near as quick as Caitlin. She isn't as long as Caitlin either, and I don't think Maia is going to be able to move anywhere near as well as Caitlin Chookagian. Maia really plants on her feet when she punches, so because of that, she has a very good chance of hurting her opponent. When you're a powerful puncher and you really sit down with your punches, those two, they go hand in hand. So because of that, she has a very good chance of knocking Caitlin out. However, I think the style of Caitlin Chookagian, once again, might be too much here. She moves very well. She has this karate stance, throwing a lot of kicks, a lot of jabs. And I just think it's going to be a Caitlin Chookagian fight. I just think Maia is going to sit down on her punches and Caitlin is going to move well and throw a lot of kicks. So in most ways, I think the only worry for Caitlin Chookagian would be not getting hit with a powerful strike. I think that's her only worry in this fight. And I think if you look at it from Jennifer Maia's side, I think she has far more to worry about and far more to concentrate on than Caitlin. So really good fight. I like the fight, but I'm going to stick with Caitlin Chookagian here to fire a lot of low kicks, body kicks, move well, and fight behind the jab. And look, pretty much just like Caitlin Chookagian. So I'll take Caitlin Chookagian via decision. We take a look at the odds. -150, -160, -155. Man, it's good odds. It's good odds for Caitlin. Jennifer Maia +130, +135. Yeah, man. It's a tough one because quite a few underdogs are coming in with these female fights. But at the same time, man, this isn't just any female fight. This potentially a #1 contender fight. And Caitlin Chookagian, man, she's going to look like herself. And I can't imagine Jennifer Maia is going to look too different, man. She's going to be that powerful puncher who sits down on her strikes. So both lines very playable. If you like Jennifer Maia, she has a good chance because of her power. But Caitlin Chookagian, man, very experienced and a really hard style to fight against. How many more times are we going to have to predict an Andre Arlovski fight? Seriously. Arlovski versus Rozenstruik. We'll start with Arlovski. He comes into this fight 17 wins, 13 losses inside the UFC. This will be his 31st UFC fight, and it will be his 47th pro fight overall. So it's fair to say he's a veteran of being a veteran at this point. Literally, like, that's how ridiculous it's getting now with Arlovski. Training out of ATT, which, we all agree is a very good camp to train out of. Arlovski, former heavyweight champion and still looking to compete inside the UFC. I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say for Arlovski. I feel like it's so tough, man. It's tough and it's hard for this guy to win because look at the fight against Sakai. He won that fight. He won that fight against Sakai, and he was robbed on the scorecards. Anyone who was betting on Sakai that night, there's no doubt after 15 minutes, you said to yourself, well, Sakai didn't do what I thought he was going to do. After 15 minutes with Arlovski, I said to myself, Arlovski did exactly what I thought he would do. He won that fight, and the judges did not score him. They had no idea what his game plan was. It's not their job to understand the game plan, it's their job to score. But at the same time, if you can't see that Arlovski won that fight, I don't know what to say to you. So that left me saying to myself, well, if you're saying Arlovski wins fights but doesn't get the scoring, how does he win fights then? And I realized how Arlovski wins in 2019. For Arlovski to beat you, He must dominate you. Who are the last two guys he dominated? Ben Rothwell and Stefan Struve. Is there any coincidence why those two guys are fighting against each other? Absolutely not. His opponent, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, comes into this fight 2-0 inside the UFC. A very, very experienced high-level kickboxer. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. Rozenstruik has had 82 kickboxing battles prior to the UFC. I believe he went like 76 wins, 6 losses in those 82 fights, and he had 64 TKOs. So, a very, very powerful kickboxer. The worry would be his grappling and his takedown defense. So, against Albini, he was taken down in that first round, and I did pick Albini. Very close to being Kimura'd, but just he was kind of making sure the whole time, well, it's not going to get to the final stage of where I'm done. And just kind of ended up, he didn't use any technique to get out of the position. He just kind of powered out of the position and survived and made it to the next round. Now, when it got to the second round against Albini, the combination this man used to put Albini down. If you can't remember it or you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It's something out of a video game. He hit him with a right hand uppercut, left hook, right hook, left high kick. Literally, just imagine that combination right now. You're hit with a right hand uppercut. The second you get your head lifted, you have a left hook waiting for you. The second the left hook lands, you have a right hook coming back the other way. The second your head's sent back the other way, you already have the left high kick landing on your head. So if you have not seen that combo, or you've forgotten it, go back and watch it. I'm telling you, the combination he put Albini down with is something out of a video game. So I said pretty much before I got into the Rozenstruik preview, for Arlovski to win, I feel he needs to dominate. Now, ATT is a good camp. I feel like the best game plan here would simply be to come out, look for a takedown against a guy who kind of reminds me a little bit of Garne. You know, he's quite quick for a heavyweight, and he's a very good kickboxer. So I don't really know how Arlovski wins this fight. Maybe, you know, his experience sees him through, but from what I'm seeing, from what I'm realizing more and more from watching tape, for Arlovski to win, he really shows the UFC, hey, look, this guy is not UFC caliber. And I don't look at Rozenstruik like that. I think he's a very good kickboxer, and that combination that he set Albini up with, man, really backs my point here. This guy is very good. Now, some people who may agree with me and say, well, what if Arlovski does take him down? That could be a game plan, but I think if Albini struggled to get the submission and was powered out of the position by Rozenstruik, I don't think Arlovski is going to be able to hold him down. And I'm not saying Albini's better on the mat than Arlovski. I'm not saying Albini's good at all. I'm simply saying Albini's a big boy with big top control. You know, he has a lot of weight. And he gets really low to the ground when he takes you down if you go back and watch that first round. So Arlovski, naturally a little bit lighter than most heavyweights. I don't think he's going to be able to hold down Rozenstruik. So yeah, I feel fairly confident with this pick. I'm going to take Rozenstruik via TKO in round number 1. And we move over into the odds. Minus 150, minus 160, around that price for Rozenstruik. Arlovski plus 130, plus 135, plus 127. Once again, boys, it's the 4th fight on this card, and we're looking at 2 lines that are being betted on. Both sides, they're receiving good money. This card, the real winners are the bookies, and then after that it's the fans or the people who won't bet, the people who won't lose money. Or man, this card's amazing. That line, once again, it represents a strong competitive fight we have in front of us. I think a lot of people betting on Arlovski due to his experience. I don't think it's a bad play. You know, he does have the ability to beat Rozenstruik, but I'm all about the new breed in this one, I'll be honest. We are faced with another really tough prediction for this one. We have Brad Tavares versus Edmund the Golden Boy Shahbazyan. And we'll start with Brad. Brad comes into this fight 12 wins, 5 losses inside the UFC. Had some time off due to surgeries. He broke his arm. So he's been sat out healing that up. Training out of Extreme Couture. And he's been there for quite a few years now. So it's fair to say Brad Tavares, a very experienced guy, very well rounded. I quite like him as a kickboxer. I think his technique is very decent kickboxer. Maybe gets a little bit too flat-footed sometimes when he's looking to read his opponent, giving his opponent some different looks. During those moments, he can come quite flat-footed, but for the most part, I really like Brad Tavares. I think he's a decent kickboxer, and technique, power, I think he's a good guy, man. Good, experienced guy. His opponent, Edmund Shahbazyan. This kid, man, this kid is very good. He comes into this fight now 3-0 inside the UFC. Training in MMA since 9 years old. Training out of Glendale Fight Club since 12 years old. Most of you probably don't know this, but Edmund Shahbazyan was actually a training partner of Ronda Rousey when he was just a teenager. Not that it means too much here, but to be a training partner of such a big champion back a few years ago, and as a teenager, you know, you're going to learn quite a few things. So this guy, Edmund Shahbazyan, man, this guy looks really good. From the tape we've seen, from the Contender Series fight, I'm sure we're all looking at this kid like, this kid can go on to be huge in the UFC. I think he has very quick hands, very powerful. He has a very good frame for the weight class, very strong as well when he chooses to clinch. And I've nailed both of his last 2 fights. I took round 1 TKO for Edmund against Charles Bird, and then I took a round 1 submission against Jack Marshman. So I feel like I'm at that point with Maurice Green last week. I feel obliged to take Edmund Shahbazyan because of the run I'm on with him, but I'll be honest, boys, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take Edmund, and I know a lot of you right now are probably saying you're ridiculous, and I may be. Maybe I am wrong. But I just feel, man, Brad Tavares is no pushover. He is absolutely no pushover. I think Edmund's best aspect of his game is to be the grappler. I'm not sure too many people know that yet, but I do believe we will find that out. Maybe after this fight, maybe the next fight. But this guy is primarily a grappler. Now, I'm not saying he can't strike. He has proven to us he can strike. He has very good power in his hands. But Brad Tavares, man, he's been training out of Extreme Couture for quite a few years. A lot of experience in the sport. And I don't think he's just going to bend over for Edmund. I mean, that's a weird way to put it, but Brad Tavares, he had that 25-minute fight with Adesanya, and I hope he's taken a lot of inspiration from those 25 minutes. Now, he did lose that fight, but you look at Adesanya now, he's champion, and Tavares has had quite a bit of time off. I do believe that he would have taken inspiration there, and I think he has a strong game plan against Edmund, and I think it's just going to be to land, to show him, look, my technique is equally as good as yours, if not better. I'm a very experienced guy, and I'm going to hit you with whatever you want, and if you want to hit me with that, go ahead. But this is going to be a big, tough fight for you, Edmund, and that's what I feel is going to be Brad Tavares' game plan, you know? So, yeah, it's my first underdog pick of the card. If I'm wrong, I'm totally fine with that because I like Edmund Shahbazyan. I think he can be a star in the future. But I think this could be the first real bit of trouble that he runs into in his UFC career so far. So I'm going to take Brad Tavares via a very close decision win. We take a look at the odds. I have got Brad Tavares at dog money. He's now on minus 110, minus 105. Edmund Shahbazyan minus 110, minus 120. Wow. Edmund Shahbazyan even turning it into an underdog at William Hill. So I'm very lucky to get on Brad Tavares as a dog at William Hill, because that's swapped now. But that line, the 5th fight on the card, that line once again replicates the other 4 lines. A very, very competitive fight on our hands. Money going on both sides. And I feel like I'm going to say that for every single fight on this card. And hopefully that shows, or to anyone listening to this, hopefully that shows how good of a card we have on Saturday. When the odds are this close for every fight, that is literally a split in amongst the betting community. That's a split. And when we've got a split like that, it's going to be entertaining. Moving on into the next fight, a very, very good fight, man. I love this card. I love this card. We have Shane Hurricane Burgos versus Makwan, Mr. Finland, Amirkhani. This is an amazing fight, man. We'll start with Shane. He comes into this fight 5 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC, so decent record there. Another guy training out of Tiger Schulman's camp. Also another guy with a black belt in MMA under Daniel Schumann. So it's like if you just sign up to Daniel Schumann's camp, he just hands out a black belt to you, like literally. Shane's a very, very good boxer. Very, very decent boxer for the 145 weight class. Very big. He's a very big guy for the 145 weight class too. Imposes his size very well inside the octagon. That's something that's very noticeable with Shane. He stands in front of you, man. He's willing to stand in the pocket with you and box. Always showing you, look, I'm going to be the dominant guy here. My size beats your size. We're going to see who goes down when we strike. You know, that's the type of guy Shane Burgos is at 145. Just like I said, man, he loves to fight in the pocket. Uses very decent calf kicks in the pocket, but he's not looking to really hurt you or do too much with his calf kicks. When he's in that pocket, in the phone booth, if you want, you know, when he's in that range, he'll use them, but that's simply to put you off of his hands. His hands, his boxing is what you want to concentrate on with this guy. And if you don't, you're going to be hurt very badly. The opponent, Makwan, Mr. Finland, Amirkhani, comes into this fight 5 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. So both guys 5-1 inside the UFC. You know, that kind of summarizes once again the competitive fight we have on our hands here. Makwan training out of SBG in Ireland, which is Conor McGregor's camp for anybody that doesn't know. This guy's basically a wrestler. He has a very, very strong wrestling background. Been wrestling since the age of 4. So, very good wrestler, man. He's won Greco-Roman wrestling championships. He's won freestyle wrestling championships. He's had over 800 wrestling matches before he even left his teens. So, just in school, he's had over 800 wrestling matches before leaving his teens. So, to say he's going to have the advantage here when it comes to grappling, that's an understatement. You know, he's levels above Shane Burgos when it comes to body-to-body contact. Now, I know Shane has a few submissions, but there's levels. There's levels to this game, and if this fight was to start on the mat, you would see Makwan completely dominate this fight. Very strong body lock, like I said. Very good entries on his takedowns. Single legs, doubles. Always looking to improve his position. Very, very strong top control. Just a really, really good all-round wrestler. And it's a very tough one to predict, man. I'm not going to lie. I love this matchup. It's a very, very tough one to predict. I do believe Shane Burgos will be the better boxer. Naturally, just a better puncher. But I do think Amirkhani, without a doubt, will be the better wrestler. Naturally, just a better grappler. So both guys bring the strong points to this fight. I was at the Amirkhani versus Jason Knight fight, which was in Liverpool, and Amirkhani was badly dropped twice in the first round as well. So if he's in the pocket here with Shane Burgos, if he's ever in the pocket, I think that's a huge risk. Now, I do believe his boxing, Amirkhani's boxing, has improved since switching over to SBG. But that's not the path here. That's not the path. If he's trading in the pocket with Shane, I think there's a huge chance that Shane puts him out. If he's smart, I think you have to kind of bait Shane Burgos in, kind of make it seem like he's going to be in the pocket with Shane. And then just clamp onto a single. Use a really good entry to get the fight to the mat. It's a real tough one because I think if you're Amirkhani, you need to look for a takedown. If you're Shane, maybe don't even fight in the pocket in this fight, because if you don't, you're minimizing the risk of being taken down. If you're Shane Burgos, you still have to impose in your will. You still have to impose your will in this fight. So you can't be the guy retreating. You do have to be the aggressor. But man, it's really hard because I really think Amirkhani has a huge grappling advantage, man. 800 plus wrestling bouts before he even left his teens. So to say he isn't going to be able to clamp down on a single, that's ridiculous. I really do think he is going to be able to clamp down on a single or a double. Now, I mentioned Shane Burgos does impose his size well, so maybe that's the story in this fight. Burgos is going to be too hard to take down. He just kind of lights up Amirkhani on the feet. But I don't think that's going to happen, man. I'll be honest, boys. I know most of you are disagreeing with me right now because Shane is a killer. He's a killer at 145. But I think Amirkhani is a killer in his own right, man. And I see improvements. Like I said, he did get dropped twice by Jason Knight, but if this guy can take his ego, Amirkhani I'm talking about, if he can take his ego away from the octagon a little bit more, I think he can become a much better fighter. So it's a really tough one, man. But I'm going to take Amirkhani, and I'm going to take him via a very close decision. I just think he's going to be able to get those takedowns, very quick entries, man. And I really like this guy as a grappler. So Amirkhani via decision for me. We take a look at the odds before we move on into the next one. Look at that, man. I could be wrong, but at plus 200, I'm well worth taking a little bet. In my opinion, anyway. If most of you boys aren't touching that line, that's fair enough. I think Shane Burgos minus 250, minus 230. That's probably the only line so far that I would have a problem with. I don't think he should be that much of a favourite. Minus 160, minus 170 sounds about right. He probably opened at that, but minus 250, I don't know. Let me know if you're betting on Shane Burgos, because I think that line is a little deep. Alright, boys, I'm going to take a smoke break after this breakdown, so let's get through this one. Don't want to rush it, though. I want to give you guys a good breakdown. So, Corey Anderson versus Johnny Walker. We'll start with Corey. He comes into this fight 9 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Decent record. If you haven't seen Corey Anderson fight, or if you have seen him fight, primarily a wrestler who transitioned into MMA through the recommendation of Ben Askren. Corey's developed good boxing skills inside the octagon. We have seen him, throughout the years, develop a good boxing skill set, but primarily for the most part, he's a good wrestler, just a good wrestler, and I'm sure most of us rate him as a wrestler. It's kind of funny that the guy who recommended Corey gets into MMA, Ben Askren. It's kind of funny that he didn't develop the same boxing skills that Corey developed. So it's a little bit coincidental. I was at the Corey Anderson versus Jimmy Manuwa fight, which was back at the very beginning of 2017. And to see Manuwa, this slow, plodding, powerful puncher, completely starch Corey Anderson, man, it's unbelievable. Like, I had money on Jimmy Manuwa at the time, so I'm happy it happened. At the very time, I felt like Jimmy Manuwa couldn't lose the fight. But looking back at it now, it's unbelievable that that was Jimmy Manuwa's last win. Like, Corey Anderson has, he's had his chin tested and proven that his chin has failed a few times. A more devastating TKO than that would be OSP. Arguably, Corey Anderson was 2 rounds up, couldn't get the takedown anymore, which led to OSP proving why he still has a contract, why he's such a good veteran. That head kick was filthy. So Corey Anderson, man, when he looks good, he looks very good. Like against Glover Teixeira, I was in Germany live for that fight and just ragdolled him, man. Ragdolled him, takedown after takedown. So when Corey can implement his game, he looks very good. When he's forced to fight on the feet or can't get the takedown anymore, I think there's a strong chance that he could be knocked out. Looking at his opponent, Johnny Walker comes into this fight 3-0 inside the UFC. And this guy is crazy. If you haven't seen this guy, I'm sure all of you seen this guy. I don't know what I'm talking about. This guy's crazy. He's so athletic. He just gets so loose. He gets so loose in the octagon with his movement, his style, his feints. Everything just flows. It flows and it's so smooth. It's so loose. And then I was watching some tape. I think it was last night or the night before. And it reminded me of Conor McGregor when... No, I'm not saying Johnny Walker reminded me of Conor. I'm saying Conor McGregor said one time, I don't know if you boys remember, but he said one time, I see stiffness in the division. They're all stuck in the mud. They're stuck in the mud. Literally, when I was watching Johnny Walker versus Misha Serkinov, go back and watch it, boys. I'm telling you, when Johnny Walker starts getting real loose and moving in there, Misha looks like he's stuck in the mud. And he just gets hit with this flying knee. The spinning back fist for Ledet. The Muay Thai elbows for Khalil Roundtree. Johnny Walker is literally the definition of a breath of fresh air. He is literally single-handedly revived a division that, is quite shallow. 205, it's quite shallow. So I really like this guy, man. I've taken him. I didn't take him against Khalil. I took Khalil. But since that win, man, I've taken him against Ledet and Misha for sure. And I'm not going to stop here. I think he's crazy athletic, very unorthodox in his feints, his movement, and just kind of he gets really smooth, man, with how loose his movement is, and he just looks like he's having fun in there. He just looks like he's having fun, and I think he could hit Corey Anderson with something spectacular. He's been spectacular in 3 of his UFC fights, and I don't think it's going to stop here. Obviously, if Corey Anderson can implement his takedowns, like I said, when it works for Corey, he looks very good. If he can do that, then there's a path for him. But I'm sticking, man. I'm sticking with Johnny Walker. I think he's looked very good, and I think he's going to look very good here. So I'll take Johnny Walker via TKO in round number 1. No, I'm going to go round number 2. I'm going to take Johnny Walker round number 2. Looking at the odds, minus 140, minus 150, minus 160, minus 170. So Johnny Walker's a favourite. Just gets a little bit deeper depending on where you're at. Corey Anderson, same thing. Plus 130. It goes up to 35 to 40, 45 to 50 and 55 depending on where you're at. So very split once again. A lot of money going on that fight, both sides. And I've got to take Johnny Walker, man. He's a killer. Alright, boys. I'm gonna take a 2 minute, literally like a 2-3 minute smoke break. I hope all my stoners, the stoners that are a part of this community, I hope you're having a nice smoke during this breakdown. And if you're not a stoner, and if you are a stoner, I hope you're enjoying the breakdown so far. We're about to get into the main card in literally 2 to 3 minutes time. Oh, it feels good. Okay, so I didn't mention this at the start of the podcast, but there's a kid. There's a kid that I thought, you know, when I see a comment on my video, I think, oh look, that's a new name. This kid's a part of my community. With this kid, I saw a comment, man, and this kid was trolling. This kid was trolling. If you don't know, I brought out a video regarding MMA betting touts. I don't agree with it. But I did say, and I've said numerous times in the comments as well, if you disagree with me on that, I still love you. I still love you. A few names have disagreed with me on that, and a few people who disagree, I see you all the times in my videos. So just know I still love you. Just know I still love you. If you agree with me on that video, cool too. But there was one kid, man. There was one kid who got really personal. I don't know if you spent like your whole life savings on picks and it failed you, but you got real personal in those comments. So this is a message to you, Mr. Connor Lodge. You're a very sad kid. You made a Twitter account because I blocked you from the channel, and you're trying to say I scam you. I scammed you. I took your money. I don't know how old you are, kid, but it's very evident that everything on this channel is free. Every single fight I discuss on this channel, I give my opinion for free. I'm looking to help people. I'm not looking to take people's money, so kind of ironic that I bring out a video regarding MMA touts and now this kid's acting like I'm an MMA tout. So, yeah, well done, Connor Lodge. You've shown me you have such a strong life outside of the internet. And I'm sorry to the boys smoking right now with me. Oh, I'm sorry I had to make it such a negative vibe during this little smoke break, but I've got to mention it, man, because if there's a kid out there making a Twitter account pretending, you know, I'm a scam artist and all this stuff, it has to be mentioned. Now, I did make a community post about this, and the support, once again, man, when I see the support this community brings, man, every week in, week out, you don't know how much I love it, boys. I love it. I love it. Man, we've got a tough first fight on this main card as well. Oh my god. Stay lit for this breakdown, boys. Stay lit, because this main card, oh my good god. And I'm sure all of you, if you take all of your winners, because you probably have you know, an idea of who you're taking before you listen to this. So if you take all of your winners and put them up against everybody else's, if all of you put your winners in the comments, I guarantee you, all of you will disagree at least 2 or 3 times on this card. That is how good this card is. Love it. Okay, let's get into this one. We have, this is the first fight on the main card, I believe. I may be wrong. Kevin, the Motown Phenom, Lee versus Gregor, the Gift, Gillespie. And we'll start off with Kevin Lee. Comes into this fight, 10 wins, 5 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a wrestler and a very good one. 4 wins via submission inside the UFC. Very powerful ground and pound. Good body kicks and high kicks on the feet. You know, hasn't got the worst hands, but isn't a striker. Kevin Lee is not a striker. His striking has evolved. You know, he's not a bad striker, like I said, but he's a wrestler, man. He's looking to wrestle you. And if you take a look, man, at some of his losses, it's sad to see, because I think he has so much potential, and I think we've been saying Kevin Lee has so much potential for quite a few years now, and just his IQ sometimes. But a very good guy. A very good guy. He's dropping back down to 155 here. A very powerful wrestler, and he's coming up against another very good wrestler, and that is Gregor the gift Gillespie. Comes into this fight 6-0 inside the UFC. Training out of Long Island MMA, which is a very, very decent camp. 5 finishes in his 6 UFC fights. 3 TKOs and 2 submissions. So we just saw a really good grappling contest, which was, you know, like someone said with the comment at the start of the video that I included, when you have 2 good grapplers, you mainly get a cancelled out grappling match, and now it's on the feet. We could have that again here, but once again, I see grappling in this contest. Gregor Gillespie, 4-time Division 1 wrestling champion. So to say these guys are good wrestlers is an understatement, man. These guys are brilliant at what they do. A very tough one to predict again. But I think the story may be the IQ. One would be the IQ and the conditioning. So wrestlers are known for having really good conditioning. It's one of the hardest sports to compete in, if not the hardest, most physical, taxing sports to compete in. So wrestlers are really known for having that non-stop go conditioning, you know. They're really known for that. And Gregor Gillespie shows it. The only difference is, I think, if you watch the fights, if you go back and watch how Gregor Gillespie performs when he does what he does, and when you go back and see what Kevin Lee does, I think the difference is when Gregor Gillespie is searching for a takedown, if it doesn't work, he very quickly, without thinking about it, very quickly moves on to something else. He'll move on to a double, or he'll move on to getting the body lock. Man, I haven't even spoke about his body lock yet. He is literally very similar to Khabib. Once he gets those hands locked and he takes the back, it doesn't matter what you do. You can roll. His number one goal is when he's got the body lock is no matter what you do, my hands will not become unstuck. And you really see that in Gregor's fights, man. His chain wrestling, the way he can move from one area to another, it's really hard to compete with. And on the feet, he sets a really high pace. His striking, just like Kevin Lee, isn't the greatest, but it reminds me of Khabib. Khabib, a lot of people, man, it's a common misconception. A lot of people think, Khabib isn't this stand-up guy, but you have to realize when you're such a good grappler, your stand-up is to set up the grappling. So both guys use their stand-up to set up the clinch, to set up the takedowns, to set up the shots up against the fence. I think Kevin Lee has a very good chance. He has good experience. Could even end up on top, pounding out Gregor Gillespie. But I think if this fight gets into the late second or even the third round, we're going to see a huge difference on both guys' faces. I think Gregor Gillespie is going to be, you know, looking at Kevin Lee like, yep, I'm ready to go again. A strong 5, high pace. And I think Kevin Lee's going to look a little fatigued again. Now, one thing I will mention is Kevin Lee has changed camps to TriStar, which I'm sure all of you know how good of a gym that is. So maybe that will play a part in a different Kevin Lee here, but I can't assume that until I see it. So Kevin Lee's going to have to prove me wrong on this one. I'm sticking with Gregor Gillespie. I think his relentlessness is better because he's able to use it more, because he's moving on to different positions and not wasting time, not using much energy in one position. So for example, if you was to ask me, hey, when has Kevin Lee done that? For example, his most recent one, RDA. He kept searching for doubles and singles up against the fence, and RDA would just defend with a Kimura position. So Kevin Lee has good conditioning, but we don't get to see it sometimes because he uses too much energy in one position that isn't working. Whereas Gregor Gillespie, if he clamps onto a single leg, it doesn't work. Then he's spinning with a single leg. So before he doesn't even think about it, he just does it. He moves on to another part of, well, if that's not working, try and defend this. If that's not, okay, there we go. Now you're on the mat. And that's what Khabib does. If you're not going down this way, you'll go down another way. And I don't think Kevin quite switches it up like Gregor. So I'm going to take probably a close decision win for Gregor Gillespie. And taking a look at the odds, I think it's very good odds again. Minus 150, minus 160, minus 165 for Gregor Gillespie. Kevin Lee plus 135, plus 145. Even reaching plus 153, which is very good. Yeah, really good line. I think if you're on Kevin Lee, it's a good spot. I think if you're on Gregor, you don't have to pay out a lot to get a win here. So, once again, the line represents a strong competitive fight. Alright, moving on into the 9th fight on this UFC pay-per-view card. We have Derek the Black Beast Lewis versus Blagoy Barga Ivanov. We'll start with Derek. So Derek Lewis comes into this fight 12-5 inside the UFC. A few backstories for Derek Lewis, for those who don't know. Derek Lewis was a boxer before transitioning into MMA. Actually boxing under George Foreman. So for people who didn't know that, just take that into consideration with Derek Lewis. Around that time he was boxing, for some reason, I have no reason why, but he got a few phone calls, and people were basically telling him, hey, look, there's someone out with a shotgun trying to find you. And one day he was driving and he realized someone was following him, so he got out of his car, went to the guy and said, like, hey, what's up, why are you following me? And at that point the guy reached the shotgun, and obviously Derek Lewis, being the beast he is, decided to punch the guy a few times at that point. And Derek Lewis is a powerful guy, so at that point Derek Lewis was charged with assault. Later on he went against his probation or something like that, ended up spending 3.5 years in jail. When he came out, that's when he transitioned into MMA. So for those of you who don't know, Derek Lewis had some adversities before he got into the octagon. And we know about this guy. We know about Derek Lewis. He's not the most impressive guy, but what he is a former boxer with extreme power. And he's proven that time and time again. Even these fights that he is losing, he finds a way to connect his hand with the chin. And when he does, it's very clear that, you know, you can't get hit off of this guy. If Derek Lewis catches you clean at any point, it can be 10 seconds before the fight's done. You know, Volkov. If Derek Lewis connects with you, it's done. It doesn't matter how good you are, how technical you are, what kind of background you have. If Derek Lewis connects with you, it's done. Now, his opponent, Blagoy Ivanov, comes into this fight 2-1 inside the UFC, training out of AKA. And this guy is actually a world Sambo champion. Back in 2008, he beat Fedor Emelianenko in the semi-finals of a Sambo championship. So, very good grappler, but we haven't really seen that inside the octagon. So, when I look at this guy, he isn't the biggest heavyweight. And he doesn't really grapple too much. He's quite composed, doesn't move too much. And for the size that he is, I would kind of expect him to move quite a bit more. I mean, you look at Cyril Gane, who we just saw. He's bigger than Blagoy Ivanov, and he moves way quicker and way better. So Blagoy Ivanov, not the biggest of heavyweights, and doesn't exactly move too much inside the octagon. For me, personally, I don't know about you boys, some of you may find a good path for Blagoy, but for me, personally, I think this fight is tailor-made for a huge power puncher. Blagoy is nowhere near as tall or as long as Derek Lewis. You know, Blagoy has power in his own right, but it's nothing like Derek Lewis hitting you. When Derek Lewis hits you, it's like a car crash. And if it gets into that second and third round, I don't think it matters at this point if Derek Lewis is tired. I think if Derek Lewis is tired at this point, Blagoy has definitely slowed down too. And every single punch counts at this point. Maybe, now that I think about it, maybe Blagoy just keeps working the body. Maybe that's a good path. Or even look for his own takedown. But like I said, Sambo champion. But But taking away what it says on paper and looking at it from what it actually is, Derek Lewis is massive. I don't think Luque is going to be able to take him down. I think if anyone's taking anyone down, I think Derek Lewis is ending up on top. So yeah, I'm trying hard, man, to picture a path for Luque, but I can't really see it. So I'm going to stick with the big power puncher here, Derek the Black Beast Lewis, and I'm going to take him via TKO in round number 1. We take a look at the odds as well for that fight. We have Derek Lewis at plus 105, plus 100, minus 105. So Derek Lewis is switching to an evens, or most likely a slight favourite come fight night. Luque Ivanov. If you're going to pick Luque, I'd probably wait a couple nights. Wait for Derek Lewis money to be piled in, and then take Luque at evens or even a slight underdog. Another really amazing fight on this card. We have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Vicente the Silent Assassin Luque. We'll start with Thompson. He comes into this fight 9 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw inside the UFC. Just like Caitlin Chookagian, and I compared him earlier, this guy is a very high level point fighting karate style fighter. Like a very, very good kickboxer with that karate stance. Prior to the UFC, he went 56-0 inside kickboxing. So once again, if you're saying Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is a very good kickboxer, it's an understatement. He's a great kickboxer. He's a black belt in American kickboxing, which, you know, obviously, like I said, very high level kickboxer. He always moves side to side. He's always going to exit on the left or the right. So what I'm trying to say by that is, if guys pressure him, if you're trying to get into an area where you can attack Stephen Thompson, he's always bouncing and willing to exit on the left or the right. If he goes right and you go right quickly with him, he's going to go back to the left. If he can exit right and you don't follow him on the right, he's going to take the right door. He's always exiting. His movement equally as good as his ability to kickbox. Now, we have the opponent, Vicente Luque. Comes into this fight 10-2 inside the UFC. 3 submission wins, 6 TKOs. So that's 9 finishes in 12 fights. This guy is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Also has very good Muay Thai, which we've seen a few times in his fights up against the fence. Very nasty up close. And Vicente Luque, man, a very decent kickboxer in his own right. Something that's quite interesting to me with this fight, and I've kind of noticed it watching tape. I don't know if anyone else has caught on to this, and I don't know how many times I've missed this in other matchups, but something is really interesting to me with this fight. Watching Luque's tape, I noticed when he gets your respect, when he starts to connect quite a bit with his hands up top, he just starts to throw these naked calf kicks. Literally, there is no setup to these calf kicks, and he starts throwing them naked once he sees the look in your eye that, no, I can't keep getting hit by this guy. He just starts throwing naked calf kicks, and now you're thinking, oh, so I'm there trying to be concerned about his hands, and now he's just naked calf kicking me. It's like at that moment, Vicente Luque has set into his rhythm, and the fight is going to go away from you. Now, I should have noticed this much earlier, but Stephen Thompson is exactly the same. Just the other way around. Stephen Thompson is a great kicker, right? And he's always going to be that great kicker. But once he sets into the rhythm of getting those kicks, finding your timing, landing with a variety of kicks, guess what? Now we're watching Stephen Thompson land 1-2s up top. We've seen it so many times. Go back and watch it. When he gets into the rhythm of landing his kicks, now he's going 1-2 up top. Now he's landing punches. And we're looking at this guy going, this guy's he's not just a kicker. He can punch too. But it's when he's in his rhythm of kicking, now he's comfortable to punch because he knows the opponent is so concerned with the kicks, he's able to implement other parts of his game. So I think that's really interesting in this fight. I think whoever sets their rhythm quicker, I think that's going to be the guy that wins. So I don't know. Sometimes I look at these fights from a real fan's point of view, I love this sport so much, and this matchup, I can see it from so many angles. I've looked at a lot of different things in this matchup, and the basic answer for this matchup, it's an impossible pick. This whole card is a very tough one to predict. Have I got to predict it? No. Will I? Yes, because I love this sport. I love it. But the bottom line is, I think whoever sets into their rhythm quicker in this fight is going to be the guy who wins. And I think the movement of Wonderboy could be the one. I think those first 3-4 minutes, if Wonderboy just keeps exiting left or right, if he keeps exiting left or right and then landing those kicks, I think it could become his fight. And Vicente Luque is one of these guys where he doesn't load up on combinations. He's very calm and composed. So maybe here he needs to find the balance of being calm and composed against such a great kickboxer and being aggressive. Because look at the evidence, right? Tyron Woodley had no business being technical. He wanted to take his head off, and he put Wonderboy down a couple times. Darren Till kind of fought the kickboxer. He kind of kickboxed the kickboxer, which is impressive. But at times, especially in the fifth when he put down Wonderboy, he wasn't looking to be technical. He wanted to take his head off, and he found success with it. And then once again with Pettis, kickboxing the kickboxer, realizes he's losing the fight, tries something just, I'm going to Superman, you want to punch your head off kind of thing, and has success. So for Luque, I think he needs to get aggressive at times if he wants to win. For Wonderboy, I think he just needs to be himself, move well, exit well, and kick well. It's a very tough pick to make, but I'm going to stick with Wonderboy to win a very, very close decision. And we take a look at the odds. The odds, man, once again, minus 120, minus 130, minus 110, minus 140. So we've got completely split favourite prices for Thompson. And Luque, I'm assuming, is the same. Yeah, plus 100, plus 103, 105, 110, minus 110 on some sites. So, we're so split that we just have loads of different prices on this fight. And that explains, once again, the UFC have done an amazing job here. Alright, boys, co-main event time, and you know what that means. Well, you don't know what that means, but you're about to find out what that means. Oh, okay. Let's do it. Kelvin Gastelum versus Darren Till. What a fight. Kelvin Gastelum comes into this fight 11 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. A winner of the Ultimate Fighter, a former welterweight, now a very, very respected 185er. Primarily a boxer, and a very quick, powerful boxer too. You don't want to underestimate Kelvin Gastelum when it comes to boxing, man. He's very quick and very powerful, especially for an 85er too. Sorry. However, Kelvin Gastelum is a very well-rounded guy. He can wrestle. I believe he does have very underrated jiu-jitsu. Now, the reason why I say underrated is because, he's not really showing us at 85, look, I can be this guy that subs people. He will throw up triangles and that if you take him down. He tried that against Chris Weidman, but for the most part, man, he's going to be an undersized guy at 85. But like I said, he's a very respected guy at 85, and rightfully so. He has really quick hands, and he's got that touch of death in his hands. Probably, arguably the closest guy to beating Adesanya over Vettori. Devastatingly finished Michael Bisping. Performed very well against Jacare in Brazil. in the first round dropped Chris Weidman, close to finishing him, but Chris was able to use his wrestling and get the win that way. So, taking a look at Darren the Gorilla Till, comes into this fight. I don't even know his UFC record at this point. He's taken a few losses recently, primarily a Muay Thai fighter. Started training in Muay Thai at 12 years old. A little backstory for those who don't know. I'm getting used to these backstories that I'm bringing into the channel. Darren Till was stabbed around 18, 19 years old. Ended up moving to Brazil due to not being able to focus on his MMA career in Liverpool. Moved to Brazil, was supposed to go out there for 6 months to practice and to teach Muay Thai to the Brazilians. Ended up staying for nearly 4 years. So, when this guy sets his mind to something, he really goes for it. He found a new way and life in Brazil, stuck to it, and he still ended up in the UFC. So, massive credit to Darren Till. He is stepping up to 185 here, and rightfully so. I'm sure we all agree he should have been always fighting at 185. Got the furthest he could go at 70, which was the title shot. Lost to Tyron Woodley, which, that's a completely fair loss. I did predict that one, and Tyron came good in that fight. But Darren Till is stepping up to 85, and rightfully so. He's still going to be the bigger, longer guy in this fight. I'm not too sure about reach, but for size, he is going to be bigger than Gastelum. So it's a really tough fight to predict. I've heard a lot of talk regarding this fight. I'll be honest. A lot of people are speaking about this fight, and I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me when I say this, but I'm going to go on record right now and say it. I disagree with most of the stuff being said. Now, maybe I don't disagree with it. It is very possible. I think Kelvin Gastelum definitely has it in him to starch Darren Till, and I'd literally go as far to say starch. Because the size advantage doesn't matter, right? Masvidal proved that. And Masvidal's a killer. And Kelvin Gastelum is also a killer. So I hear people talking a lot of people. I don't hear hardly anyone picking Darren Till. So I do think Kelvin Gastelum could prove how good he is again. But I think this is without a doubt the right move for Darren Till. I think he's going to be better at 185. I think he's going to look better in there. I think he's going to be more powerful in there. And like I said, man, he's been practicing Muay Thai since 16 years old. So if he can get into a good rhythm, start to use some high kicks and body kicks, and even go to the calf, man, just a variety of powerful kicks coming towards Gastelum, and still be able to snipe with the left hand, I think he has a very good chance of winning over 15 minutes. Now, can Gastelum take him down? Probably, but at the same time, Darren Till is very big. He's very big and powerful. Now, he may not have the wrestling credentials of Chris Weidman, but it only takes a lot of strength to sprawl and end up on top of Gastelum. He's not a big 185er, so it's very tough, man. But I really do believe Darren Till can win over 15 minutes. And I also believe Darren Till can put out Gastelum. I think he's going to be way more powerful 15 pounds above. He's going to be arguably 25 pounds heavier than he was at 70. So I think the power of the left hand is going to be increased. I really think Darren Till can do it. And I'm going to take it. I'm going to take Darren Till. So I know a lot of you disagree with me. Just leave the comment now, man. Leave the comment now and tell me my boy is getting starched. But I will say this. I don't want to see anyone say I'm taking him because I'm English. Because for anyone who's watched the channel for some time now, I pick against English people. And you also know that I do put my money where my mouth is. So there is no doubt I will be putting money on Darren Till in this fight. So I'm not just doing it because he's English. I do really believe he can win this fight. And that's coming from someone who was at his fight against Wonderboy. And I picked Wonderboy in that fight. I was at that fight. And straight after the fight, I said Darren Till won that fight 49-46, and he did. For anyone who says Wonderboy won that fight, please go rewatch it and come back to me before you say it. Like I said, I'm English, and I bet on Wonderboy, and I scored it right. Trust me, if that was a robbery, I'd be the first to say. So I'm going to take Darren Till, and I do believe he can TKO Gastelum or even win a decision. But I'm going to take a decision. I'm going to take Darren Till via a very close decision. And the odds, Darren Till plus 160, plus 170, plus 180. Oh my boys. I know a lot of you are going to leave comments, and I hope I can respond to them after and say, I told you so. But, oh man, I really should edit that out, because a lot of you are going to say the same to me. So, yeah, I'm going to keep it in, though. I'm going to keep that part in. You know me, boys. It's banter. I'm feeling the bowl, you know. It's banter. I love you, boys, still, you know. Alright, boys. This has been a long card, but I've really enjoyed breaking it down. It's main event time. You know what it is. Just before I get into this main event, I checked my YouTube statistics page. Shout out to the Philippines. Shout out to the Philippines for being my 5th most viewed country. Shout out to you, man. Okay, main event. Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz. I'm going to go ahead and start it with this. Absolutely anybody wins this fight. And anybody who says they are very confident, I'm telling you right now, they're a liar. Jorge Masvidal comes into this fight, I believe 11-6 inside the UFC, training out of ATT. We know about Jorge, primarily a boxer or a brawler, if you want. Transitioned now, it's fair to say, transitioned now into a kickboxer, and a very good kickboxer in his own right. One thing I want to say about Jorge Masvidal is, why did he try and kickbox Wonderboy? That was insane to me. But I'm just going to mention that, because I'm gonna bring up a point later on. Jorge Masvidal, we know about this guy. He's always willing to stand in the pocket. He's a brawler. He's a dog. He's a power puncher. He's got power. Just a different mindset, a different being to most people, man. He's a real dog. He's a gangster, and I believe his last 2 fights, just his last 2 fights alone, kind of back up my words there. You know, this guy is a real gangster, man. He's tough as nails. Fighting in backyards, we all know that. I don't even need to mention it. This guy, he's top notch. He's just a bad man. He's a bad man, and rightfully fighting for the title that suits Jorge Masvidal. Nate Diaz comes into this fight 15 wins, 9 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a boxer inside the octagon. I felt if Nate Diaz just stuck to boxing instead of MMA, I think he would have earned far more the amount that he has earned in the UFC. He's a very, very good boxer. His jab is very accurate. It's very fast. It's very constant. It's always there. He's always fighting behind the jab. He loves the 1-2. We know about this guy, man. He's the cardio king, right? Conditioning 10 out of 10. It's tough as nails. You know, Mexican style. Tough as nails. His head is made out of metal. He's that tough. You know, just both of these guys rightfully fighting for this title. The baddest motherfucker rightfully fighting for this title. Not to mention, well, I will mention now, Nate Diaz has amazing jiu-jitsu, 2nd degree black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you know, so if guys take him down, he's always within a great chance of a submission. It's very good jiu-jitsu, man. Even if he looks for a takedown as well, you could be in big trouble. Now, he has had trouble against wrestlers, but like I say, his jiu-jitsu is so good, he's always within a chance of submitting you. Now, this, like I said at the start of this main event is impossible to pick. If anyone says for sure that this person will win, they haven't been watching MMA for very long, or I don't know. Trust me, this is no sure bet. But I'm going to pick and I'm going to bet because that's what I love to do. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to decide. I'm gonna probably give you a different prediction than what you've heard anywhere else. But if you've collected a bunch of predictions and you hear this one, and you may agree with this too, and I'm honestly going to decide off of this. I'm going to literally make my pick based off of mindset. Literally, it sounds ridiculous, right? Well, that's what it is. Both of these guys are fighting for the baddest motherfucker title, and it's because they're both exactly the same. One guy has amazing conditioning, one guy's a dog. You know, both guys are bad men. You know, they're great fighters. And I'm going to just make a pick off of mindset. And I'm going to refer to this moment. If you don't remember this, I'm going to remind you, or if you don't know this, I'm going to tell you. Masvidal had an interview with Ariel Helwani, and in that interview, at one point, Ariel asked him about his split decision losses, and Jorge Masvidal returned and said during his talking about his reality show time, said during that time he had moments when it was just him, the voice in his head, the stars, God, and the universe. That was all that there was for him in those moments. And he said, you know, he just had this realization moment with himself, kind of asked himself why he lost to these split decisions, and instantly he said, why am I trying to kickbox the kickboxer when I should just take him out? And I believe he was referring to Wonderboy. Why is he trying to kickbox a kickboxer? Now, it was ridiculous, right? Masvidal was point fighting with Wonderboy. It wasn't the right thing to do. So I'm going to decide here off of mindset. I think this guy has a strong, rebuilt, revived mindset. And I think he's not going to do what most people think he's going to do. I don't think he's going to brawl with the boxer. You brawl with the boxer, who's a cardio king, you're going to find yourself with a loss. I think Jorge Masvidal is going to implement something that has been proven to work against Nate Diaz. And I think that's the lead leg calf kick. RDA, he basically wrote the blueprint back in 2014, 2015 with that lead leg calf kick. He just tore up Nate Diaz, and he was able to compromise his movement. Now, Conor McGregor, the second fight, go watch that fight. Look what Conor opens up with instantly. He opens up with constant calf kicks. Constant calf kicks, which open up the space to connect on his head. And Conor didn't land and drop Nate 2 or 3 times the way he did. That happened because he beat up the lead leg. So it appears to me that if you want to beat Nate Diaz over 25 minutes, or if you want to have a good chance of beating Nate Diaz over 15 minutes, you have to beat up the lead leg. And I believe in Jorge Masvidal's revived mentality. And I'm going to hope that he understands he needs to do what he needs to do, not what he thinks, hey, I can compete there too. This guy's a boxer, well, I'm a boxer. I don't think he's going to do that stuff, what he did with Wonderboy. I think he's different. Like I said, this isn't a sure bet. Whoever says this is a sure bet, I'm telling you, you're talking out your ass. But I'm going to take Masvidal. I'm actually going to take him via a very close decision too. The odds, -170, -160 for Masvidal. Nate Diaz, +140, +150. Very good odds on both sides. As always, guys, I appreciate you. Drop a comment, leave a like. Let's get talking about this sick main event that we have ahead of us. Yeah, peace.